Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool. Many years ago, I picked up this pair of Snap-on Linemans. It's even branded the Lineman. Now today, if you try to look up the Lineman on the Snap-on website, you might not find anything under Lineman, but you start digging through their hierarchy of tools, and eventually you might have to click on something that says Lineman. But anyway, they call this a high-leverage multi-plier now. And in fact, this is the current iteration. This is the 59 CF, whereas the earlier version marked Lineman was the 59 AH LP. So they're a different kind of plier. Now this is also one I really like. This is the Lineman. It says that too. This is the 57 AHLP. This is a smaller version. Both of these were exceptional. Just a great size, great feel, nice and slick, you know, operation there. Just a tiny bit of resistance. And then, of course, they had the main things I was looking for, which is a fairly grippy cross hatch jaw, nice big cutting knives, and then this area under here, which only recently did I discover what that was for. But anyway, this one caught my eye, and I thought, wow, it's in green. It looks like it's a little bit more updated. You can see they're taking the fish tape a little bit seriously by having that curved area. It's turning out that this underside, the under pivot area of these Lineman style pliers is kind of a pricey chunk of real estate. Others, well, here's Klein, and they have tossed in, you know, a crimper on theirs. Milwaukee took that same crimper idea and took it one step further, and that is they put this ramp in here to keep the fish tape pulling straight so you're not crunching it, you know, around. Like a lot of people just shove them in here. This doesn't say it's really designed for that, but this is the Knipex version here. So where am I going with this? Well, this is a brand new one off the truck. It's a little bit different. Let's take a closer look at it and see why it is going back. So here is the new cross hatch pattern. This is actually what they're calling the talon grip on this guy. If we compare it to the original, you can see it is different. So it's the original was kind of more in line with the Klein. Whereas this new one is what they're calling the talon grip. It's got the big knives right there. That's always great. The great big surface underneath. That's wonderful there. And then it is a fairly large plier, which I really like. Nice and smooth, but kind of sticky. Remember I said this one just had a little bit of resistance. As you can see, I can easily open and close this thing without ever, you know, stressing this. Compare that to the Knipex. You know, that's really what I love. Here's my Kleins, you know, when I've done videos on some of the sticky pliers. There's this guy here, just absolutely silky smooth. Milwaukee, this one's pretty close to just almost a free fall when you get it to a certain point. But here's the problem. I can read, literally read through the hole inside this thing. This is such a bummer. If I look really close, it isn't damaged. It was forged so poorly. You can see that. Now, the only other place I'd ever noticed that kind of forging marks was on this. This is actually 1/2 of a Klein plier. And if you look at those marks, that's fresh out of the forge. I mean, this is obviously unfinished. Nothing. Kind of little trinket there. But if you look at this, that is atrocious. And I thought, wow, is this a one-off or something? You know, to have that much of a mess? See if I can get that to focus on there. What do you think? Compared to that other knife. This is how a knife should look. This is how this side looks. And this is a $90 plier. Now, if Home Depot's website is correct, they're selling these things now for $45. I'm almost tempted to buy one. They call it a 9-inch plier with a 6-inch handle. I did get my tape measure and thought, is that true? Is that how you measure it? Or 6.5 inches, which would be right there. So it might actually be this plier, actually with a newer style handle. And that's actually $45. I'm tempted just to buy one and see. But that's half the price of the Snap-on. So let's have a little heart-to-heart here on American manufacturing. First, Snap-on is charging a premium. Crank on my light here to show you this. Now, for a premium price, what am I paying for? I assume, like I said in a previous video, that America can't really sell junk because any other country can make junk cheaper than we can make junk, so what we have to do is sell quality. And look at this. Look at that. You see that in there? That is just wild. And that, I can squeeze it as hard as I want, and it does not close. Here's German engineering. Check this out. Look at that. I'm going to close it nice and small. I mean, wow. Now this one's been used a bit. There's just a tiny bit of visibility there, but that is not going to really stop wires. If you forgot what the Snap-on looked like, that's what it looks like straight off the truck. Here's a Klein. Look at that. Now Klein often closes from the bottom up, and if you do that, that's totally fine. You can see as I increase the squeeze on this, I can actually completely close it. Here's the Milwaukee, made in the USA. Nice closure there. Teeny weeny speck of light. That might be from use too. Here's another pair of Klein. In this case, again, from the bottom right up to the top. So that allows you to choose. Some also do it the other way. They actually close from the top down, and that allows you to choose if you want to have that little snippet of wire off. But this thing, that is a defect straight from the factory. And is it a defect? Okay, I've got a piece of wire here, 12 gauge, solid core, so I can throw that in. Look at that. Now, some people would say, hey, that allows it to not fly off. Okay, that's true, but sometimes that's quite a bit. Something's going to have to happen to make that thing fly off. I mean, that is crazy. That is a lot of non-cutting, and I would rather I was in charge of making that decision. You know, if I get right up to the top, I can snip it because, as you recall, there was a complete closure only up near the top there. Turn it this way, I guess you can see right there. But if I get down a little bit lower, nope. And there's nothing I can do about it. So if I was trying to cut something, nope. Nope. And those are on there a little bit more than anything I've seen as far as the, you know, kind of retaining the material, so I would have to break it off later. This is what a worn plier looks like. I've got an old, look at that. Here's an old Klein & Sons, ancient plier. Still works great, silky smooth. You know, a little bit of resistance, but that pivot is rock solid, even though it has spent, it looks like at least a third of its life as a hammer. But what happens if I put that, again, if you look, you can see there's a big chunk of damage right there. So if I drop that in, there we go. That's close. It's a little less cutting than the Milwaukee, but if I go up to the top, still cuts just fine. And if I go all the way to the bottom, I'm really in trouble on this guy. So maybe it's time to retire that one after, I don't know what, 100 years maybe? But that's what wear looks like. This is, I think, shoddy quality control, and in fact, perhaps a forging issue. Look at that. Look at that mess. Pop it open there, throw my light under so you can see. I mean, that is crazy. For a $90 pair of pliers, that's got to be the most expensive lineman that's not, you know, commemorative or something else. And I was thoroughly thrilled, happy, no hesitation whatsoever with these. And then this is where we're going. If this is American manufacturing, we better step up our game. You know, I've had a few Snap-on duds, and this one surprised me. Plus, it came filthy. This is as much as I could clean it up. I don't know. I'm just a little bit worried, especially when you've got, you know, Icon chomping at your heels, Snap-on. You know, I should feel nothing but extreme gratitude at your quality. And, you know, doggone it, sometimes you really let me down. I can literally hold this up to my eye and read right through it. And that is supposed to cut wire. I don't know. Let me know what you think. enough rambling. And with that, Doc out.